What exactly is New Earth Ascension? And how can you wrap your mind around what is actually happening when you hear people talking about ascension, New Earth, 3D, 5D, all those different ways of explaining things in the spiritual lingo? I want to break it down to you a little bit today to help you have an understanding of what is really happening in the energy and how it might impact you personally. Welcome to the Soul Alignment Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Angie, and I'm inviting you to explore the depths of self-sabotage, limiting mindsets, and the beliefs that hinder our progress in life. Through intuitive messages I receive from my spirit team, I share profound insights to help you live authentically and break free from these limitations. Join me now as we uncover all the keys to living your best life. Welcome back. My name is Angie, and I am your Soul Alignment Mentor, bringing you intuitive messages from Spirit to help you align with your most authentic and highest self. So there's been some interesting things happening recently in the world. I'm sure if you've paid any attention, you've noticed that some businesses have changed. We had a president step out of the next election. We've had a lot of other interesting things happening around the world. Let's just leave it at that. Now, I want to share a little bit about why these things are kind of happening in the way they are, but also give you a little bit more of a comprehension of what New Earth Ascension is, what 5D energy is, what this means for humanity, and what the shifting in the frequency is actually like. What is happening with our frequency? What is happening with the Earth's frequency? So I want to first start out with just explaining what is New Earth Ascension. What exactly is happening and why is this happening? So to help you understand, I want you to take your mind back through history. Around the time of Jesus, which would be considered around 2000 or so years ago, probably a little over 2000 years ago. This man, Jesus, started to cause all kinds of problems. Now, if you grew up in religion, if you've been on the religious side, then you have the understanding from that perspective. But I kind of want you to think about it from the perspective of the people that didn't necessarily follow Jesus in that time and what it was like for him to come into this setting and start talking about all these things about being like calling himself God, about him uprooting or throwing tables over in the temple, him getting all these followers to come follow him and listen to him and like all this stuff. And then you have the people that are not doing that and they're becoming more and more upset. The people that were not doing that were realizing that he was shifting people's mindsets into no longer following what they had put into place and they wanted to use as a way to control people. And the way that they had set that up was being able to have their needs met, their ego met, basically. And this is why the Roman Church ended up, or like Julius Caesar and all the people involved in that era that were connected to the church, they ended up crucifying Jesus in that time because he was speaking against everything that they had already set up as a structure. And he was pulling people away. So that would be like you or I walking into a church setting somewhere and telling them, this is wrong. The way you're teaching this is wrong. None of this is right. Like completely going against everything that they had built their foundation on. And if you have ever had anybody come against you in something that you truly believe to be true, what's the first thing that we're going to want to do? We're going to fight against that belief of what we think is true. And so that is why there was this attack basically against these teachings. This is still happening. It began then and it's still happening now, just in a different way. So Jesus actually kind of started the process of this new awakening and new earth ascension that we're seeing manifesting now. He predicted that this was going to happen. He talked about this. There were other people that were involved with writing the Bible. Now, there is a lot of the parts of the Bible that are completely messed up, made up, not accurate, but I do believe that there are parts of it that are accurate. And some of the visions that people would receive about New Earth Ascension and you could say the end of the world in some aspects were kind of accurate, but it wasn't portrayed in the accurate way. And it would be like somebody from the 40s or 50s that lived in a completely different town and place than you coming into your timeline and talking to you about something. And you're looking at them like, I have no idea what you're saying because you speak a completely different language. It's like the Gen X trying to talk to Gen Z. Like they're saying all these like cool language, saying things, in a cool lingo way. And then Gen X has a completely different way of comprehension and talking. So that is what has happened over the years. Now, what's interesting is people have taken some of the things that have been written as literal, and that is not actually accurate. It's because of the language barrier, basically from the timing of when it was written and when it's now being shared, that we don't fully have the full picture of it. So we could interpret it as something really bad going to happening, or the whole entire world like having, ending in some aspects. But if you come from the higher self's perspective, from the spiritual perspective, from the perspective that Jesus actually had, this is actually an ending of the old way and a beginning of a new. It's not the end of the world as we might per se. It's the end of an era. It's the end of a frequency. It's the end of a time period that we had manifested and created for the last 2,000 years. And over those years, we have been progressively moving through this 3D energy where we have created things around us in a very dense, egotistic way. The era we're moving out of was built on the ego, was built on control and manipulation and hierarchy. And I benefit from you, but I don't care what happens to you. I just want to be in charge. I want to benefit in some way, no matter what it does to somebody else around me. Now, there are people that have not been in that, but that's kind of what the structure has been over many, many thousands of years. And you can even see that in how many of, like, even if you think about the history of America, the way that America was created and built in the founding fathers, like they didn't come into this country thinking about who already lived here, the natives, and how to support and help them. They came in thinking, I will take from you and this will be my land. So it wasn't a loving way of creating something. So we're shifting away from that old way of doing things into a new frequency, a new way of doing things. And in the new frequency, we are going to be moving more towards the individual having power and not necessarily relying on the power of someone ahead of you or above you or in control of you. We are learning that we are spiritual beings that are capable of creating our own reality. So we're taking our power back and then creating out of that power what we know to be aligned with truth, with our true higher self. Now, I want to transition a little bit into the actual energy shifting that might be happening within the earth and why we call it an energy or a frequency or an ascension. And just to help you understand this a little bit more, I'm going to use some examples that you might even consider to be like parables, like what Jesus would use. One of the things that my spirit team had told me a couple years ago is they began to show me a split of the earth. They began to show me that it was almost like I saw the earth like pulling apart and moving into two energies. And when I ask about that, when I ask my spirit team, what is happening? Like, what is happening with the earth as it pulls together? So if you imagine the earth and then the frequency shifting into two different energies, they're saying that the split is taking the low dense energy and we're moving into a new energy. And so the way that that I can help explain it as far as energy, in this, there's a couple ways that spirit has been able to explain it to me. So I'm going to share both of these ways. So hopefully you can hang in there with me. They explained to me that just like in your home, you have different plugins around your house. Some of them have two prongs, like you can plug in your fan or a light or whatever it might be for that. Then you go outside and you might have three prongs, and those have a little bit more power for a little things that need a little bit more power. And so there's different frequencies that are being released in different outlets throughout the home or in different places that you might engage with electricity. And this could be in any setting, not necessarily your house. But for the sake of just thinking about your house, all these different levels of frequency are happening. Now, there's one source that is providing the electricity. It's coming from one source. But there's different levels of frequency that are being sent out through these outlets to whatever might be plugged into it. If you put too much power in something that can't handle that power, it will explode or set a fire or something. So this is why there are ways to control that frequency. But if you were to go out to the source of energy to your house where the electricity is hooked up to your house, follow that line out to the big pole that has where everything is hooked up to for the electricity, and you were to go out there and to climb up there and you didn't have any experience working with electricity, you didn't have any tools, you didn't have any protection, you didn't have a clue what you were going to do when you got up there, you just knew that there was energy there that needed to be worked on or whatever, you would not survive because you were not skilled enough and you weren't trained in working with that high dense energy, that high frequency of energy. So what, compared to like the earth, we have been going through that process where we've been in this low dense energy, we could call it 3D energy, and we're shifting a little bit higher into these other outlets of energy where we are learning to handle a higher frequency. And we're basically being trained in our ego, trained in our mind, trained in our energy, in our body to handle higher frequency. And that is why when you go through a spiritual awakening, when you suddenly start realizing you're a spiritual being living a human life, one of the first things you go through, it seems intense and fast, and it's just like this crazy, it literally is like something falls off your eyes, like scales fall off your eyes, and you start to see things completely different, and it's overwhelming. And you start to want to heal things that have held you back in your life. You start to realize that you have all this stuff inside of you that needs to be released. That is because you didn't necessarily know that it was there because you were at the same frequency as those things. You were vibrating along with those really dense emotions that you held in your body. But now that your frequency is rising, you're not vibrating at those same low dense energies. So you have to get rid of them to continue to rise in your frequency. You can't keep moving forward and hold on to old things. I can't swim to the top of something and have something around my ankle holding me to the bottom. I've got to let that go so that I can get to the top. So this is kind of an analogy the Spirit has given me about how it's preparing us to handle the higher frequencies. Now, here's another example, and I've used this example in some of my other videos, and I'm not sure what the title of it is, but you can look through some of these and see if you can find something that talks about the frequency and energy, but is the example of a battery. So a battery has a negative and a positive energy about it. That is how it has power. If you have a battery at two positive ends, it's not going to create the energy that's needed for what you're using it for. If you have two negatives, it's not going to create energy. So you have a negative and a positive on a battery. We have been, if you think about a battery being plugged into the energy of the earth and the energy of heaven, so above and below, we have been in that negative part of this battery, so to speak, in 3D energy. And now we're shifting up the battery into the positive. We're moving into a different frequency, a different energy. Now, what is important is to understand that both ends have a reason for being. There is a need for both, or it would not be energy between it. So we have been using this lower density to work through things in our spirit, to learn things, to experience things. We actually created this low energy so we could have the experience of it, which is crazy to think. Why would we want to have these negative experiences? Well, because our soul learns from it. Our soul grows from it. Our soul learns who it really is. When you are separated from someone that you love, they always say love grows stronger in absence. That is what's basically happening to our soul, is we have become absent of our true self. We have left the understanding of who we are, moved into a different frequency, forgotten who we are, worked in that energy. And as we've continued to work through our lifetimes, these different low dimension energies within the 3 energy, more and more and more, we've woken up into who we are. And our love has grown even more towards our true self, and we've been waking up little by little to who we are. Now, we have shifted so much into that positive higher frequency that it is starting to speed up. Go back and watch another video of mine where I talk about the energy of time speeding up. The reason time is speeding up is because there is not enough dense energy to keep it from being slow. So we're speeding up time as we're moving into that positive. And it's just like when we get back into spirit, when we get back into our original form, when we leave our human life, time does not exist. So as the earth shifts into a higher frequency, time becomes less and less dense, which means it feels like it's speeding up much faster. So as we're moving into this frequency, we're beginning to see better. We're beginning to hear better. We're beginning to experience ourselves in a new way. One of the ways that Spirit has also explained to me is that this is a vision they gave me a couple years ago. When you're driving on a really foggy night or a foggy morning, early morning, and it's still dark out and you're having a hard time seeing, you don't turn your brights on to see through the fog. You have to keep your brights dim, or your lights dim, so you can see. You can't see when you're projecting a lot of light into fog, because it actually makes you see the fog more. So our light has been diminished in the 3D energy so that we can have that experience. And as we're shifting up and around out of this low density, we are actually being able to push that fog out, where we're clearing that out and we're able to brighten our light a little bit more. And in that, we are ascending into a new frequency. So all this is happening with humanity, is happening with the earth. Everything is shifting into that next frequency. And it doesn't mean there's not going to be a density to it, because we're still experiencing the human life in this moment. Again, I shared this in my other video where we were talking about if we're in 5D energy yet. The reality of it is we are not there yet, because we are not ready. we are not ready to handle that much frequency. It would be like me climbing up the pole in my backyard, working with the electrical connection to my house. I'm not ready. I am not trained to be at that high frequency. So we're going little by little. But time is speeding up, and therefore this process of ascension is also speeding up. And so we're seeing things happening on a much quicker level, on a much denser level. We are actually watching things begin to shift on the earth in real time as the frequency is moving it out. It's almost like that fog is starting to move out. And that's why we're seeing all these shifts and crazy things happening on earth. This is why we're seeing more natural disasters. This is why we're seeing the political scene changing so much. We're seeing all these things because what it happens when you start to clear it out, you have to actually take that fog and rid it. So it's almost like we're digging up what we created, what we built our foundation on, to create a new foundation, to rebuild in a new energy, to rebuild in a higher frequency. And so we are working through that now. And from this, around this time, so we just, I believe it's today or yesterday, we had the new moon in Capricorn. And for years, I spent time meditating with the moon. I would meditate with the full moon. I would meditate with the new moon. I would get a message from spirit. I would share that message. And for some reason, I got away from that about 8 months ago. It just wasn't aligning with me as much. But this last few days, a couple of days ago, I knew that the new moon was coming. I knew that it had a significant energy about it because I could feel it. But I kept feeling like my spirit team was behind me, tapping on my shoulder saying, we have something important to say to you. Can you stop for a second and listen to us? And so I finally did. I finally sat down and meditated, and I asked, what is going on? Like, what is this energy? And I heard them say, we're wiping out the old. We're wrapping things up so that humanity can step into this next age. And the next age is the age of Aquarius. If you've never heard the song, I believe it's called Time of Aquarius or Age of Aquarius by Fifth Dimension, is a group back in, I believe, the 60s. They sang a song and they talked about this exact thing happening. We have been going through shifting into the Age of Aquarius since last March. And we've been still in this very dense energy because we haven't shifted fully into it. But we are about to do that around January and February. We're going to feel a different energy when we hit the new year for a few months. But in the meantime, while we're still in the year of 2024, for the next several months, we are going to see some crazy events happen because that old energy, that foggy energy we have been building things in, we've been trying to work through, trying to shine our light through, is being cleared out. Now, it can cause a lot of fear for those who do not understand what is happening. And Spirit has confirmed to me over and over that there is nothing to fear. There's nothing to worry about. Fear is a part of that low frequency we're also clearing out. So you have to let go of the fear as well to rise and move through this easier. Now, I want to take some time and talk about that specifically, about how the universe and how we are going to be working through this energy that we have been holding on to. Like I said prior, when you go through an awakening, you start to see the lower frequencies you hold in your mind, your body, and you start healing and letting them go. But in the meantime, you've been learning tools, you've been learning who you are, you've been learning about manifestation, you've been learning all these things about this process of you awakening and coming into your higher self. If you're just starting this, then don't worry. You're right on time. There's not any timeline that this is supposed to happen because we're the ones that create time in the first place. So just trust the process. Don't feel like you have to rush through anything because the energy of everything that's happening is just going to naturally move you through this. So there's not anything to worry about where you are, how quickly this happens, if you haven't done enough, whatever it is. Don't worry about that part. Just follow the intuition and your spirit's guidance. And if you need help with that, please reach out to me. I have one-on-one mentorship where I teach people how to work through this. So, and I'm actually offering a huge discount right now if you sign up in the month of July with me. But what is likely going to happen, and I've been experiencing this for the last month, but particularly this last week, is we are going to have kind of what we might call tests. Now, I have a hard time using the word test because I don't necessarily think that that God or the universe ever actually tests us. I think it provides things for us to learn from. And I don't think that they're tests. I think that they're opportunities that are given to us to grow. And what you might notice is things that you thought you overcame or that you've worked through and that you've been moving freely through are going to kind of feel like they're returning. For myself, it has been related to fear of lack or fear of not having my needs met. And as I have noticed this fear happening, I've noticed a change in my my income within my business. I've also started to suddenly have a whole bunch of things go wrong. I've had more struggles in friendships and relationships. I've had more things happen in my house that need to be worked on or are breaking down. And I've had more things come up in my mind that have caused me fear, that has made me think twice about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Now, these tests that are coming my way, I will just give you a couple of examples so that I can better give you an understanding. So as I'm struggling with believing in, this old lack mindset coming back in, I had some plumbing issues earlier in this week and I hired a plumber. The plumber came, fixed it. It worked out fine. And then just yesterday, the exact same issue happened again. So that means that I have to get a plumber again to come and fix the same issue, which is really annoying to me because I'm like, I don't want to spend money twice on the same thing. And then after this happens, the very same day, yesterday, I go out to mow my yard. I start my mower. I am in the process of mowing. About 2 minutes in, my mower just completely stops. It will not start again. Even my neighbor tried to come over and help me and he couldn't get it to start. Neither of us could get it to go. So now here I am thinking, not only do I have to hire a plumber, not only do I need to buy a new lawnmower, not only do I need to do this, and it's all related to my finances. It's all related to money and my mindset around money and lack. And so for me, the test is, am I going to keep trusting that the universe always takes care of me, that I am a spiritual being and I can create the reality around me and I can just manifest that money? It's just money. It's just energy. It's nothing that should cause me to go back into fear. But those situations or circumstances are actually giving me an opportunity to see something I still have in my belief system, something I still have in my energy that needs to be cleared out and released. If I don't have these opportunities around me, these experiences, I don't know that's still there. I don't know I still need to work on this. So they're actually providing to me a test to see what I've learned so I can continue to grow and learn in that same way. It's just like taking a test in school. Like you take the test to see how much you've learned. And once you get done with the test, you know which parts you still need to work on. So that is what the universe is doing, to expose things in us to help us see, what else do I need to work on? So I can continue to clear that fog out and rise in my frequency so that I am not so impacted by the density of it. And as we're moving up in our frequency, things become easier. Things become lighter. Now, we are going to still be human. As long as you're in this body, as long as you are still experiencing this earth in some way, you're going to have a human experience. And human experiences involve things not working, things breaking down, all that. But the way that you work with it is going to be completely different. It's not going to pull up the old fear. It's not going to pull up the mindset of lack. It's not going to do those things. If you're in relationships, you're not going to sit and dwell as much on somebody saying negative things to you. If somebody makes fun of you, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, that thinking it's you, and actually pulling that in and holding it. If somebody were to say, gosh, you're so ugly, I would not look at that person and think they're right. Gosh, I am so ugly. And I would spend my next week thinking of how ugly I was. What the new way of the ascension would be to look at that person and be like, wow, that's an interesting perception they have about me. That's interesting that they're projecting that outward. They must have some struggles with how they feel about themselves, and hopefully they can heal through that, because I know that's not about me. I know that I'm not the ugly one. So I'm going to send love back to them, and I'm going to help them see that reflection of something they need to heal. But it's not me. It's not what I believe. It's not who I am. It's not the frequency I hold in myself. So that is like another opportunity for you to see and be tested in an area that maybe you've grown in, or maybe you still need to work in. So all this is going to be working together in attempts to support and help us move forward in our life and ascend into a higher frequency, ascend up into that frequency of the positive, of the lighter energy. And the next part of the year will be very intense. It will happen very quickly. We will see some hopefully positive changes in the beginning of 2025. And then we might actually see some more pretty intense things happen within 2025, 2026. I am getting that the next 3 years are going to be interesting, but I share this information for you to understand how to work through this and how to handle what is happening and how to shift through the energy without allowing it to manifest into your life or control the way you see things or experience things. Because the way that you're going to react is going to be really important for you and your experience as you go through this. So again, I'm just going to let you know that I am doing a huge discount on my one-on-one mentorship. If that is something you are seeking, reach out to me. There's going to be links below, whether you're listening to a podcast or YouTube channel. Reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. Let's get on a consultation call and see if there's a way I can support you, whatever you might be going through. And let's all work on this together. Let's remember that we are a frequency of love, and that when we project love out into the world, we're going to receive it back. So I wish you all the best day, night, evening, whatever time it is for you. I send you all the universal love. Namaste.